Hi and welcome to Fantasy Footy Fan, Jeff here. I was able to find a little bit of time this week to put this video together. I wanted to chat about potential trades, some players that would be good to bring in, some on the bubble, some that probably more preferable to trade out. I wanted to chat a little bit about strategy behind our trades as well. And one of the first things I wanted to speak about was just being a little bit too reactionary. We've seen 2 games with some players and 1 game on one player, and we've even seen some good performances of one, bad performances of one. And yeah, it's tough. We've got to make some decisions and some tough calls. If we want to trade someone out or trade someone in, we've got to be very careful just to make that decision based off a score. We've got to be able to look a bit further than that, rather than making decisions just off points. For example, so Nick Martin, there's a few that have Nick Martin, and I know that there's a few that are trading him out. Now, what's the reason why we picked Nick Martin in the first place? The reason that we picked Nick Martin is because we thought he was value, but why was he value? He was value because he was no longer playing on the wing, and then when he played on the wing, he played 1 season, 2 seasons, and the upward trend went up. He was just getting better and better. So he's due for that 3rd-year breakout. But even better than that, we saw that his role was at half-back, which meant that he was probably going to get more ball and play that kind of Nick Dacos role. Now, is that something that we saw over the weekend? We did. He played the halfback role. He was running up the ground, down the ground. He got 25 possessions or something like that. So it was all there. What was the problem? The problem was his clangers and his disposal efficiency. It was horrible. But is he going to have that every week? No, he's not. The main thing that we want to look at with Nick Martin is his role and is he getting the ball? And he ticked both those boxes. So now, look, you may not agree with me. That's fine, of course. Everyone's got their different views and feelings and strategies and so forth. I'm just sharing, of course, my opinion, and you can take that on or you can ignore it. I'm just here to provide some of my own opinions and advice and help. And in my opinion, I've got Nick Martin in my team. And that's the way that I'm seeing him. Now, he could be a bust. You never know. Like in the next few weeks, he could end up getting 60 scores. But in my opinion, I don't think those 60 scores, if he gets any more in the future, are all going to be based on bad disposal and clangers, because I think he's a better player than that. I think he's a better kick than that. So we'll have a look. But this is my point. This is what I'm trying to get at, is that we don't want to just dump a player based off points. But when I say that, I mean more particularly we're talking about your premiums and your higher end mid prices. We're definitely talking about rookies here. Like, for example, you got Jai Clark, and yeah, his disposal efficiency was terrible. But we want to be able to look beyond the points. We want to be able to see, has there a role change? Like James Sicily, for example. So he had a horrible score, but his situation is different to Martin. What happened with Sicily? Well, James Blank is out, and they've got a few other injuries down back. So what's happened to Sicily? Well, his role has changed. He's no longer playing that loose man that he normally plays. He actually has to man up on someone, and he doesn't score well when he has to do that. So we need to keep a close eye on him. But if you've got Sicily, you may feel, okay, his role has changed. He's got a really really high break even now. Let's see where he's at. So 196 is his breaking even. He's going to lose a ton of money. So you may feel, okay, I'm going to jump off him now. Or you could say, well, let's have a look. Let's give him 1 more week. I'm going to jump off him maybe next week. But then you might also say, well, you know what? I've got other trades I need to make in this next round. After round 2, I want to use my 3 trades for something else. So for 3 other trades I have in mind. So maybe I'll make the Sicily trade now, and that's how you may view it. I know I'm actually viewing some of my trades that way. I'll actually go through my trades a little bit later. That this is my point. What I'm trying to get at is that, we want to look beyond the points. We want to try to see the role, see if there's any other influential factors. So we got to be a bit discerning with the decisions we make in relation to being reactionary or making the right call. It's at this time that these decisions can really, it's a long season, but some of these decisions can make or break your season if you just get that right trade, and that's where planning ahead comes into it. We don't want to just look at just this round for trades. We want to try to think ahead, particularly when you've got like players on the bubble after this round. So we want to try to be thinking ahead of potential trades that we could be making in the future. And when it comes to our trades in our team, one of the most important things, as a fundamental of SuperCoach, we want to get our rookies right. That is vitally important because it's our rookies that make cash, and it's our rookies that help us to have a successful SuperCoach season, because we make cash off our rookies, we downgrade our rookies, then we upgrade other rookies or mid-prices to premiums as quick as we can, and that can only happen if we've got rookies that make cash. So we need to get that right. Now, I'm going to go through a few players, or a few rookies to start with, actually. I'm going to go through some rookies and some more, maybe the higher-end rookies, expensive rookies, in all the fields, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. And I'm just going to have a bit of a chat on, maybe what we should do with these rookies. So I'll get into that in just a moment. I think the other thing that we should also keep in mind, it's only been a week to 2 weeks, we need to keep faith in our premiums. So if we've got some premiums on our team, we just kind of feel like, I want to get rid of it. I've got 40 trades, I want to get rid of them. But, I think we picked them for a reason. They've got history. Just like what happened with LDU. He had that poor game in the preseason game, and all of a sudden everyone jumps off and thinks, oh, he got a 40, he's going to be terrible. He's going to get 40 every week. It just doesn't work that way. The guy's a premium for a reason. He's averaged high in the past for a reason. So, we know that, he's not going to get 40s. He may not get 120s, but we know he's going to get a decent score, around the 100 to 120. It worked out that he got 121 this week, so that's great. So we just want to have faith in the premiums that we pick and not just jump off them straight away unless we see a role change. If we see a role change, then we have to give it some thought. So, for example, there's been talk about, it might have even been Longmuir, I might have said it, talk about Hayden Young being moved back in defence, because obviously they've lost a few players with injury there, and they might even move Young back in defence. There was talk of Jackson moving in the forward line with Reedy coming in. Now, we don't know what's going to happen, but if those role changes happen, then we're going to have to make some tough calls, because Hayden Young, we all got him in because he was going to play midfield. Luke Jackson, we got him in because Darcy was injured and he was going to play ruck. So this is what I mean by just, keeping your premiums unless there's role changes. So like in my team, for example, players like Dacos, LDU, Green, Rosie, Miller, Gawn, Heaney, like even some of these players, they're keeping the same position, their premiums, and you pick them there for a reason. So yeah, just stick with them in case some have not scored well. Like I think, what did Bont get? I think Bont got 128. Oh yes, no, he actually did all well. Sorry, I was thinking of fantasy where he didn't actually do well, but Bont did well. But there were some premiums, like I think Goulden, for example. I think in round 0, I think he got actually a pretty poor score. And there may have been some that may have jumped off, but he got a 77 in round 1. Does it mean he's getting 77 every round? Well, no. There are other tactical move that you could make, of course, if these premiums get low scores and then they're on the bubble, then we may think, okay, use a couple of trades, jump off, have that cash and use it somewhere else, and then jump on that player later when he's bottomed out. So that, of course, is an option. It will require a few extra trades, but it's a tactical move, and that's another option that you could take. But I wanted to just start with talking about the rookies now and some players that we could potentially bring in or trade out. So looking at my team here, so I was able to jump onto Hoare at the last minute. That was great. I got him in. just when we found out that he was being named in the team, and I put him in for Gibcus. Obviously that worked out. It's fortunate and unfortunate for Gibcus. But Howes obviously is one that if you don't have him in your team, there's 48% of teams own him. If you don't have him in your team, he's one to bring in. He's got a negative 86 break even. If he gets 44 points, his projected score is another 60,000. Not score, but his projected price change will be up by another 60,000K. So he's one that I think a rookie we all should have. We're going to make some cash off him, and he's got job security, and he'll play down back. So he's one that I think we should definitely have. And we've got Reed, we've got Gibcus. They're players that some of us might have, and we really need to, we don't have to move off these players, particularly Gibcus. He's out anyway. But some might want to trade him to Massimo D'Ambrosio, so we'll talk about that a bit later. But Howes is a rookie that'd be good to have. Hoare as well. He's also not a bad rookie as well. He scored 60, but we're actually pretty destitute for rookies back there. There's not many to actually really pick from. We think about Charlie Dean. He's there down back. He's played 2 games. He's on the bubble. He's got a negative 43 break even, but this is the thing we got to consider, is that there's a chance that Collingwood may bring in Billy Frampton for Charlie Dean, because Collingwood's defence has been pretty bad, and Charlie Dean, has been okay, but Collingwood may feel, well, I think we prefer someone a bit more experienced down back like Frampton. The other thing to consider is that I think there was an article today talking about Nathan Murphy progressing really well and expected to be back in the next few weeks. So will we earn enough cash off Dean before he's traded out? Could it be a bit risky? It could be. And then, of course, he's got his bye as well in round 5. So, he's someone just to think about. The other one is Caulfield. You may have started with Caulfield, and if you have, you're probably sticking with him unless you don't have, Howes or someone like that. But, he's been okay. He's got a negative 2 break even, which after one game, you'd want it to be better than that. He's got a projected, if he gets his projected score, which is 44, then there's no price change, and he got 49 in round 1. But a negative 2 break even. Which actually matters more. Hopefully, he actually does better than what he's doing. But when you have a look at his role, that's the concern. If we look at his role, it seems to be a little bit more locked down. But if you've got Caulfield, you're probably keeping him. He might be a slow burn, but he does have job security. Then again, his coach is Luke Beveridge, so we don't really know. But you'd think he'd have job security. But I don't know about if you'd be trading him in. That's the only thing. So the other player that for a moment was doing okay, and that was Carl Warner. 134k defender, so he's got a negative 3 break even, and he did okay, got a 63, but of course he got absolutely knocked out. The injury list came out this week, and it said he's out for 2 weeks. So he's probably not one to bring in, but he's probably one to consider when he comes back after he's played his second game, because then we'll be on the bubble, and by that stage we might have actually had a few rookies already play a number of games, and he could be a good downgrade target. So just one to keep an eye on when he comes back. Oscar McDonald was the other one. Obviously do not be bringing him in. As it says here on the injury list in SuperCoach, he did his knee. I guess he's expected recovery times to be confirmed. He's out for quite a while, according to the injury report, or Fremantle's injury report, which says, I think that says it's to be considered. So we don't know. So he's out for a while. So I wouldn't be bringing him in. Not that you probably would be bringing him in, because he only scored a 27, but he was looking okay there for a while. But so definitely don't worry about him. Bodie Hewland was one that, came as a bit of a surprise, especially after his first game now. he played his second game where he got a 57. His break even's negative 22, which is good. But he also has the bye in round 3. So that's the thing. Like, I guess you don't necessarily worry too much about buys with rookies because you're really wanting them just to make cash. So that doesn't really matter. But if you feel that he's going to make cash, then you can bring him in. He's got the job security. And this is the thing, is we're pretty desperate in defense for rookies. So we'll, he's, I guess, one to maybe think about. But as far as cheap rookies go, I think we're in a bit of trouble. I think we're probably better off. Well, this is my plan anyway. I think we're probably better off having... I'll mention my trades in a moment, but I'm going to end up having Zach Williams at D6, and I'll have Hoare and Howes on my bench. I'll explain how I'm going to do that later, but I just think because there's just no rookies in defense, and all the good rookies to make cash off are in our midfield, and some in our forward line, but mainly in our midfield. So that's where we want to probably make the most of the rookies in the midfield, and then maybe a couple of those low end mid prices in our defense and forward we want to take advantage of. I think that's a pretty good structure. And so that sort of moves me on to D'Ambrosio. I mean, he's the most traded in player. 33,000 teams, 20% of teams have traded him in, and I'm going to be one of them as well. Look, we could wait, and this is the thing I was saying about planning ahead and strategy. We could actually wait till next round where he plays his second game and then he's on the bubble, and we could pick him then. But another option is to just trust the role. He's got a good role. He's got job security, playing across half back, bit up the wing. He's not getting what did he get? 124, 122. So he's not getting 122 every week, but he's got that in his price cycle, and he's still going to probably get a bit of the ball. So it might be a trade we may want to make now so that we have the 3 trades available next week with a lot of players on the bubble. Especially if you've got Gibcus. I think that's probably the most popular trade is that Gibcus to D'Ambrosio trade. So he's one I think that we should be looking at bringing in if it fits our structure, unless you've already got him, of course. Because the last time I checked, his ownership was quite low, but I imagine that will change. So 9% of teams now, and I reckon that'll go even higher by the weekend. The other one as well that teams might have is Connor Buderick. So he's owned by 7% of teams, 10,000 teams. So his break even's 56. So yeah, he's got to go. And I reckon if you've got Buderick, it's just a no-brainer. It's a straight swap to D'Ambrosio. If you've already got D'Ambrosio and Buderick, then it's a trade somehow that if you haven't got Williams to Williams or to Howes, or these are the players you want to have in your defense that will make cash quick. But other than that, there's not a lot really to go on with our defenders because we've lost Reed for 4 weeks. Obviously, there's the choice to keep him if you've got other pressing issues, or to move him on. Gibcus, you've got to move on, of course, eventually, if not this week. But yeah, other than that, there's not really a lot for us in defense. But coming to our midfield, there are some rookies that are just must-haves, and that is Colby McKercher. If you don't have him in your team, he's 64% of teams have him, so there's 36 that don't. So, if you don't have him in your team, he's a must-have. You need to get him in. He's going to make us cash. He's playing that really nice halfback role when he comes on the ground. He's like just a little chip kick here and a chip kick and that, and it's good. And so he scored an 88, and I think he's a good player to have. Roberts is the other one. Well, let's see, look at McKercher for a moment. Yes, he's negative 12 break even. He's on the bubble, so I guess if you haven't got any real pressing issues and you can save him till next week, you could do that. But Roberts is actually on the bubble. Now, he's got a negative break even of 58. which is great. So he's going to make us cash quick, and it looks like he's got job security and a good role at halfback and even up the wing. He's averaging 72. He's scored a 76 and a 69. So he's doing well. So obviously, if you've got him in your team, great. Like McKercher, if you have him in your team, that's great. If you don't, Roberts and McKercher are the ones to bring in. If you don't have them both, then you'd want to prioritize Roberts because he's on the bubble this week, and then maybe McKercher next week if you can't afford or you're making other trades. But yeah, so those are the two that are really important to have. Jeremy Sharp is the other one, so I'm glad that I started with him. There was a lot of talk during the preseason of him starting on the wing and having that role, and it looks like he has that role. And then in his preseason game, he didn't really play that well, and so a lot of teams jumped off, but he had a really good round one. He's still owned by 35% of teams, and he's another one that I think is a great rookie to have in your team. Again, not necessarily this week, depends on your structure and other trades you're planning to do. But he's on the bubble next week, so you could always bring him in next week as well, and it's not going to, nothing's going to change his price or anything. So he's one definitely I think to look at to bring in either this week or next week if you don't have him. Then there's Riley Sanders. So, he is a great player and he's getting the ball and he's doing his part, but just Bevo's just not coaching and not doing his part, taking him off and subbing him off. We just don't know what Bevo's going to do. So, again, one to have a look at. If you don't have Sanders in your team, you may feel like, I want to wait. I want to wait and see what happens this week. Does he come on as the sub? Does he get subbed? Does he get to play a full game? It's something you may want to wait. But obviously, if you own him, I think if you own him, then you keep him. The real question is do you start him on the ground or keep him on your bench? That's going to be the question because... it's just so unpredictable. If he plays a full game, then you'd want to have him on the ground. If he gets subbed, he's going to get these scores like 43. So that's going to be a tough one. And do you want to be aggressive with it and just start him on, or do you want to be conservative and keep him off? So that's a decision I have to make. For now, I have to make as well. So for now, I've got him on my bench. Clark, Clark had just absolutely deplorable disposal efficiency, which is why he ended up on 13 points. So here's another one where you may feel like, you know what, I'm going to trade him now for one of these rookies that I really need. Dempsey obviously performed really well in the forward line. You may think like, I'll trade him out now, swap him down and get Dempsey instead. Or you may feel like I've got more pressing issues. Maybe I'll wait till the end of round 2. And then I'll bring him in then if he doesn't perform. So, I'll speak about my trades in a moment, which do involve Clark. But there's a bit to think about there. Jack Carroll, now of course you may not be bringing him in, but it all depends on your structure. Jack Carroll is another rookie that I think is definitely worth bringing into your team. Obviously he came on in the sub in round 0 and he did so well in the time he was there, and when you hear all the interviews afterwards, all the players, they raved on about Jack Carroll and that he came on and really helped them change the game in round 0. And then he did the same in round 1. And he spent a lot of time in the midfield as well. So I actually think he's got that job security, especially with Doc and Walsh out. I reckon he's going to be rotated through the midfield, and I think he's going to be a great cash cow. So he's played 2 games now. He's on the bubble, but he's got his bye, of course, so you can wait till next week. But depending on your trade structure, your planning, you may feel like bringing him in now might be a better idea. So you've got your 3 trades available, including that boost, the 3 trades for next week. And he's going to be involved in my trades as well. And I'll explain my trades in a moment and how Carroll's involved. The other player is Jacob Ware, that there's a few that have him. He's another 123k mid, 8% of teams, negative 25 break even. So he's probably only going to end up average about around that 50 mark, maybe even 60 if he can. That would be nice for his owners. He's definitely got that wing position for himself. I mean, that's definitely his, because he's playing on that wing in place of Isaac Cumming. And the recent injury list says that Cumming's out for another 6 to 7 weeks. So that's Ware's position for the next 6 to 7 weeks. So he will make cash. And if you've got all these other players and you've got a spare position in your midfield and you've already got Ware, then look, you may want to keep him. Just don't know how well he's going to score, so he could be a slow burn. So Sam Berry, he's one that I brought in as well. He did okay. I was a bit concerned though, because he spent less time in the midfield than I thought he would, and less time in the CBAs. He did score an 80, so you still have to be happy with that at his price, scoring an 80. So is he one to bring in? Personally, I would, if you don't have him, I would wait till he's on his bubble, which is next week. If you do have him, you'd hold unless you need to do some corrective trades elsewhere, because Berry's one, because there's so many rookies in the midfield. Berry's one of those players that is a little bit expendable. You could trade him down now to one of these rookies, so then you've got cash and you've got a rookie that will likely score maybe similarly to Berry. So as you can probably tell the way I'm speaking, Berry is in my plans. I'll explain that in a moment. So he is an option. Jared Lyons was also an option for a few, because he's around the same price. He's 258k, negative 44 break even. He scored 106 in round 0 and 81 in round 1. So Lyons has a reputation for obviously scoring a lot more, so we might feel like, well, that's disappointing that he's only scored an 81 in round 1, but that's pretty good for someone priced at 258k. So I think if you've got him, you keep him. He's on his buy, obviously, so if you want him, you're probably not bringing him in this week unless it fits your structure. But he's still one to consider, maybe even for next week if you want to get that low-end mid-pricer in the midfield. But it looks like he's got the role, but that's because Lachie Neale is not in the team. It appears that Lachie Neale will come back after the bye here and come back for round 3. And if that is the case, then that does heavily impact Jared Lyons' role. So what we're wanting to see is how Lyons plays with Neale in the team. So that also goes for Riley Bonner as well. So there's a lot of teams jumping on Bonner at the moment. He has his 284k mid. He's played the one game for 102, which is great. He's got a break even of 5. So he's definitely going to score quite well for now. But this is the concern, and we're going to be able to find this out this week. Jack Sinclair comes back into the team. Riley Bonner, I think, is playing that Jack Sinclair role. There's talk that Sinclair will go into the midfield and that Bonner will just stick to that half-back role. If that is what we see this weekend, Sinclair in the middle the whole time, Bonner down back, then Bonner is one we would absolutely want to trade in at round 2, because it means that he's definitely got that half-back role. But what could also happen is Sinclair comes back in, Sinclair goes back to that role across half-back where he pushes into the midfield. It then pushes Bonner out of position or in another position, and then his scores aren't as high as what they could have been. So for me, with Riley Bonner, if you've got Riley Bonner, obviously you keep him. But if you're thinking of bringing him in, I think he might, personally, I would wait, because I want to see how he plays with Sinclair in the team before you bring him in. Going to the forwards, so look, we've got a lot of mid prices here, low end mid prices, that 2 to 300k, and Fife is one of them. If you don't actually have Fife, Depending on your structure, he's one to definitely, I think to bring in. I watched him in the preseason game. He spent a lot of time on ground. It showed to me that he was fit. When I watched this Fremantle game, and he looked great. I think if he was concerned about his health and fitness and his body, and Fremantle were concerned, well then he wouldn't have played so much time in the midfield, and his minutes would have been managed, but they weren't. So I think he's one, if you're looking at that price range, he's one to seriously consider if you don't have him in your team. If you do, you'd be pretty happy. And there is possibly even a slight chance he could be a keeper. Who knows? That's maybe a bit far-fetched. Well, I don't know. You never know. We'll see with 5. So the other one's James Jordan. If you got him in your team, you'd be pretty happy with him. He's the other one, that mid-pricer. He's got a -12 break even, which is great. He's averaging that 82 mark. He's everything that we were hoping for that price, and what we were hoping to get out of him. So yeah, that's great. I'm really happy with him. And if you're thinking about bringing him in, yeah, he's another one to bring in. Of course, he's got the bye in round 5, but I imagine that most people would probably be wanting to bring in Billings after his last game, and we'll chat about Billings in a moment. Harley Reid, he did okay, 78. I mean, that's great, I guess. Not okay, that's actually pretty good. If he could average 78, that would be awesome. Is he one to bring in now? Yeah, you could bring him in. I think he's a keeper. 80% of teams have got him, so there's only 20% of teams that don't. But yeah, you could wait till next week when he's on his bubble to bring him in to see how he goes again. But I think he is pretty much a must-have. I know that Simpson has spoken about maybe being careful with him. What does that mean? Well, that could mean subbing him out, missing a game. It is possible, but I think in the early games, I think he's going to play, and he should earn us enough cash before that kind of thing happens. Darcy Wilson is a great pick. 69% of teams own him. -17 break even after this one game, and he's scored 66. Great cash cow. I actually think he's a must-have as well. We know Ross Lyon loves him, and he's got good job security playing across. We thought it was going to be wing, but I reckon it was like half forward, high half forward, or half forward. But yeah, I think he's one. If you don't have him, he's also one to bring in. And then moving on, Cadman. I think if you've got him, you'd be really happy. -56 break even after 2 games. 55 and 72 is what he's scored. You would be pretty happy with him if you've got him. If you don't, is he a must-have? No, not necessarily. If you don't have some of these other rookies, they would be probably better off bringing in. If you've got the cash, there's some slightly more expensive rookies that you could bring in. So not necessarily a must-have, but he's doing well so far. So Sean Manor, he started as the sub. I think if you've got him and you don't have some of these other better rookies, then I suggest to be trading to him. But you may feel like, well, we'll wait one more week because he may actually start in this game. It's possible because he has played very well when he's come on from being the sub. So because I think he is owned by a number of teams. What's he own? 37%. So there are a fair few that have him. If you've got him, you may want to keep him, I guess, because there might be some other pressing issues you need to other players you need to trade. But I wouldn't be bringing him in, put it that way. Harvey Thomas, he did okay, but could be a slow burn. -20 break even. He scored a 40 and a 45, so probably a slow burn. If you've got him, I guess you're probably holding on to him. But he is on the bubble. That's the other thing. So if you don't have any of these other rooks that have better job security and are better performers, then yeah, you'd want to get onto them. Otherwise, aside from that, yeah, you'd keep Thomas, but you wouldn't be looking at bringing him in. Seth Campbell is the other one. There's a few that own him. He's also on the bubble. 123k as well, negative 232 break even. And he's scored, a 70 and then a 31, which wasn't great against Carlton. So another one that if you've got, you'd want to be trading to a better rookie. Otherwise, yeah, you wouldn't be bringing him in. Then Gallagher also played as well. It looks like Bevo is favouring him. He scored a 49, negative 2 break even. But, you know, if Bevo decides to bring in Jack McRae, who does that impact? Maybe a McNeil, maybe a Gallagher, I don't know. But yeah, I guess he's also one probably on the back end of the rookie list or the forward rookies to bring in. Karmas is the other one from the Doggies. So he is a negative 4 break even. He scored a 51 in his game. And again, another one that is probably going to be a bit of a slow burn, not a high scoring rookie. Sexton, of course, pretty popular, 63% of teams. He's rookie priced, but got the good role. So he's playing that halfback role. 73 and 63, they're good scores. Negative 62 break even. So you got to be pretty happy with that. If you've got him, then yeah, you're happy. If you haven't, I actually think he's someone to bring in with the job security, the potential for higher scoring. I think, yeah, he's worthwhile bringing in. The other one, based on their performance this round, Dempsey. So 148k forward, scored a 96, but that was with 3 goals, I'm pretty sure, and negative 41 break even. So, but because you know, he's only played 1 game, he's on the bubble next week, so you could consider bringing him in next week rather than this week. Tom Berry, of course, is probably one of the more popular trade-in options. I think he's third. Yeah, he's third. To bring in of all the trades this week, and that's just because he's playing some really good football, of a 62 and an 104 this round. Clearly has the job security as that pressure forward. Clearly Damien Hardwick really likes him, so he's got the job security. He shows that he's got the potential for scoring with that 104, negative 75 break even. He's on the bubble, so if you're going to jump onto him and you've got the cash and you've got no other issues, then you jump onto him now. Even though he's got the buy, it doesn't matter. He's a rookie. Yeah, he's only there to make cash, not to necessarily score as such. You're more about him making money, although you want him to score. But yeah, he'd be one that you'd want to jump on now and then just keep on your bench, of course, in round 3 because he's not playing. But yeah, he's there's a reason why he's one of the more popular picks this week. To bring in Caleb Windsor, he's been okay. He's scored 58 and a 72. Negative 30 break even, so he's pretty good, but we just don't know again with this whole sub thing because he got subbed off again and he scored a 72, so that's pretty good. But he's also on the bubble, so do you bring him in? He's quite an expensive rook, 180k. If you don't have some of these cheaper rooks, then you're bringing in the cheaper rooks before you're bringing in Windsor. Zane Dersma, he also looked quite good, let's see, I'm just going to get him up here. So he's a 193k forward, scored 71, which is great, and he's in round 1 and break even of 1. So if you've got him, of course, you're keeping him. But if you don't have him, you can also wait as well till next week before you bring him in. He's quite an expensive rookie, but if you really are bullish on him, then back your gut and bring him in, unless you don't have some of these other players. But at 193, there's some mid prices that you could actually bring in that's a little bit more expensive than that might actually get you some higher scoring. And we'll come to some of those plays in a moment. Lazaro is the other one that some probably would have started. He's owned by 21% of teams. Didn't really have a great first round. 42 he scored. Didn't play as much time in the midfield as we had hoped. Break even of 26. He could be one of these ones that you may feel like you might downgrade to one of these cheaper forward rooks. Or you could even upgrade him a little bit as well. But then you can also wait till next week. But I wouldn't obviously be bringing him in. Finn McRae is another forward rook. We've talked a lot about him. So his break-even's 30. It just all depends on whether he's going to actually start. Now, he came on. I mean, Mitchell's probably coming back this week. I think there's talk that he's coming back in. So what does that do for McRae's position? We don't know. Maybe he starts as the sub again. So until he starts playing like some regular games, then we'll consider him. Up until then, he's just not worth it. If you have him in your team, he is on the bye this week, and his break-even's 30, so he could actually get that. If you can see that he's now actually that's the other thing. Collingwood are playing tomorrow night, so we're going to find out the teams this evening, and we'll find out if he's the sub or not. 6:20, 6:30 or something tomorrow. So if you've got him, then you'll know if he's named in the team, and then you'll keep him. If he's not named, like if he's the sub, then you may consider trading him. Trading him because you don't want to be losing money off him. But you know what? Even if he comes on as the sub, you're hoping he comes on. The way McRae's been scoring, he could come on in the last quarter and get that 30 break even. So then you may look at trading him the following week. So yeah, just depends how you want to approach that. Billings, of course, is the second most popular player traded in because of his score last week. He started as the sub in round 0. And scored an 11, and then just scored a crazy 119 in round 1. So he's got a break-even of 5, and he's on the bubble. So if you're wanting to bring him in, you're bringing him in now. His bye is not until round 6. So that's a few games away. So if you're deciding on, if you like Billings, you're kind of wanting to go on him, you get on him this week because he's gonna absolutely just jump and get a massive price hike, and then when I say massive, it'll probably be around 30 to 40k is what it'll, but that's still a decent jump. Instead of him being 244k, he's going to be 284k. Or 274k, so that's still affordable, I guess. So you could probably wait another week if you really wanted to, but if he fits your structure, then yeah, definitely bring him in. James Harms, he is a massive trade out. So he had a terrible game, a 35. He's owned by 10% of teams. So if you've got him, trade him out. Trade him to a Billings or a Jordan or a Fife. His break-even 62. He got suspended, so he's missing this week as well. So yeah, definitely just trade him out to one of those other mid-prices or one of those other rooks that you haven't got, and bank that cash and then use it elsewhere. And then lastly, for the rooks is, he's not really a rook, but Zach Fisher. Wanted to just quickly talk about him. Break-even of 92. Will he get that this week? It's possible, but he just had a really bad game, and he only scored a 50. Are you wanting to jump off him? I can understand teams wanting to jump off and maybe getting onto another player. You may think, I could just get onto a Fife or a Jordan or a Billings, and I could make nearly 100k or around 100k in cash, and then get a scorer who's going to score just like Fisher, but then I've also got 100k. That's decent reasoning. That's fair enough. But you may also decide, well, let's give him one more week. Let's see how he goes next week. And, you never know. Like, he may put out like that score that he put out in the practice game. So we just have to, I guess you can just wait and see on that. Just really quickly, just others that I'm considering, or that others are considering. Dacos is on the bubble. If you don't have him, try and bring him in, especially if you've got Sicily. I'd be trading Sicily to Dacos if you don't have Dacos. Sicily is one of those players where I think now, you'd probably want to trade out if you got him because of this role change that he's got. He's got a break even of 196. Now, having said that, he has put up some massive scores in the past. I just think with the role that he's got, yeah, it's hard to say like him getting close to that. If you don't have him in your team, well, then the tactical move there is just to keep an eye on him, wait till he bottoms out, wait till the role changes, and then bring him back in or bring him in. Sheasel, absolute gun. My plans to bring him in. I'll mention how I'm going to go about that in a moment. Yeah, so he scored a 130 and he's just a gun. So if you have him, awesome. If you don't, yeah, you'd want to be trying to get him in eventually. Hayden Young, so yeah, break even 127. That's not great. You know, his disposal efficiency wasn't great. He lost a lot of points with clangers and things, and that's why his score was low. But now there's the concern that he might go to that half-back role, which means that he might not score as much as his midfield role, or maybe he scores more. If he does go to half-back, some have Jordan Clark or thinking about Jordan Clark, he may be impacted as well. So we all have to wait and see this week how Fremantle structure up and how Hayden Young goes. But if he scores another 70, he might be one to maybe jump off. Whitfield is another one that is on the bubble. If you've got him, you're definitely keeping him. If you don't, and you're wanting to sort of cash in on his score, he's got a break even of 62. He's averaging 113, scores of 108 and 118 against Collingwood and North. So you could jump on, I guess. We also have to remember that he has his bye in round 3. So if you jump on now, you'll have him for 1 week and then he'll have a bye. So that's just the little sacrifice you'd have to make if you wanted to jump on Whitfield. But he looks like he's got the role and he looks like he's playing really good football and could average that, 110, 115 this year. So Will Powell is the other one. He's also on the bubble, and he's scored a 123 and a 118. He's looking really good. He's got that great roll across half-back. He's got a break-even of 44. If you like him and you want to jump on, then this would be the round to do it. He's got his bye in round 3. He's going up by probably 30k this week, so he'll get up to about 540. So he'll be a little bit expensive. I plan on trading him out. I'll explain that in a moment. And then there's Clark. So Jordan Clark, as I mentioned, you could bring in Clark this week potentially, but you want to see how Hayden Young is being used. Clark did quite well playing that Hayden Young role because Hayden Young was in the midfield. 108 Clark scored, only 1% of teams, so he would be a pod. But you could wait till next week because he's not on the bubble yet. Moving on into the midfield for some of these players. So I think Sarong, everyone's kind of getting excited about Sarong because he put up 170. I've said from the very beginning, I love Sarong. He's going to have an awesome year. If you've got him, feel so happy that you do. If you don't, you can bring him in this week or bring him in next week. Are you going to sideways trade a premium? I wouldn't recommend that unless there's a role change in the premium you've got. But if you want to upgrade a mid-pricer, like you may decide to upgrade Martin to Sarong. Can't really argue with that. The only question is, what are you sacrificing? Where are you getting the money from to be able to do that? If that other trade is worth it, then Martin to Sarong, go for it. Of course, Matt Rowell is the other premium as well. But he's got the buy in the following round, 14% owned, 25 break even. He's averaging 146. Brownlow medal favourite, probably along with Heaney. 137, 155. He's looking beast mode for the year. He's an interesting one, jump on. But if you got him, you're keeping him. The other one is Tom Green. Again, buying round 3. And I'm just pretty happy that I started with him. He's averaging 142. He's scored a 132 or 152, break even of 60. You could either wait till he jumps up 30k next week. That means he'll get up to 650. and then you could bring him in after his bye. But yeah, what are you having to give up to bring in some of these premiums? Miller's the other one, of course, another premium, round 3 bye, same situation, averaging 126. He's got 116, 137 scores, 49 break even, same situation as Green. Bont, he's obviously you're keeping him if you've got him. 146 break even. I think if you don't have him, you're just keeping a close eye on that break even. He scored a 126, just a touch under his break even. So yeah, you'd keep an eye and see how high that break even gets, and then hopefully Bont drops down in price, and then you're looking at bringing him in when he bottoms out. Steele, if you've started with him, that's great. He's going to be great value this year. 79 break even, scored 119, looks really good. And he's one to bring in, maybe not this week, maybe next week. Hopefully he can get back to the scores he was putting up a while ago. Hopefully he ends up getting somewhere between a 110 to 120 average. And then Matt Crouch, he had a great game, of course, playing in the wet, scored a 114 and break even of 70. He'll be on the bubble next week, so you could wait to see how he goes again next week. Or you may look to bring him in now because he's good value. And then there's Max Holmes. And he's actually done quite well this week. He scored a 112, got the halfback role. Good mid-price to bring in, but you can always wait till next week to bring him in. Clayton Oliver is the one to just keep an eye on because he's actually playing well, but he's been scoring kind of low scores for him. That is 90 and 105, break even of 179. So you're waiting till he hopefully bottoms out, if he ever does. This is Clayton Oliver we're talking about. And then we could bring him in then. I think same with Goulden. If you don't have him, 159 break even. So has scored 77 and 109. So you're probably waiting till he bottoms out to bring him in if he ever does. If you own all of these players, you're just happily keeping them. But if you don't, you're looking at bringing them in when they bottom out, some of these players. Tim Taranto is the other one. Just keep an eye on him. He is better than how he's playing at the moment. Break even of 176. He's scored a 49 and a 105, which is not too bad for him. So just keep an eye out on him as a possible. But he's got the round 6 bye. And then in the forward line, you've got Heaney. Heaney's the other one that some might be jumping on because he's got a negative 12 break even. He's scored a 144 and a 136. He has the bye in round 5. If you're upgrading to a forward, Heaney's got the role. John Longmire's come out and said that they're playing him in the midfield, at least in the interim, for the next couple of weeks until Parker and Adams comes back in. So he's actually making us some really good cash over the next few weeks before those mids come back in. So yeah, you could look at bringing him in to make that cash and then trade him out. But if you've got him, then you're keeping him for sure. Hogan's the other interesting one. That's just come out of nowhere. You might want to chase the price on this one. He's only 419k, but he's averaging 139. He's scored 113, 165, negative 46 break even. Got the bye in round 3. But, maybe you want to play an aggressive game this year and you may just want to jump on. Obviously, as it always is, the highest scorer for this round had Jesse Hogan in his team. It's always a way with these, with the highest scorer of the round in these early rounds. They tend to have these kind of strange teams with players that you wouldn't normally have in your team. But you never know. He's an option to bring in if you want to chase the price. Flanders, of course, on the bubble. If you want him in your team, you don't have to get him in now, but unless you've already got a good premium you can trade him to later on. 124, 128's got the role, getting a lot of CBAs, getting a heap of the ball, and he's going to have an awesome year. He'll definitely be an F, 1 to 3 for sure by the end of the year as the highest scoring forwards. Harry McKay's the other one on the bye, so you're probably not getting him in this week unless it fits your structure, but you've got next week as well to bring him in when he comes back. 130, 112 if you want to chase the price. I think he was a negative 12 break even. Sorry, negative 21. I wouldn't be doing it personally. And then lastly, this is the last player I want to talk about. Is Luke Jackson. We've got to keep an eye on him. So he scored a 113, 92 break even. You could also trade him out next week or trade him in next week, but we've got to keep an eye to see if this Reedy plays, this other ruckman, and how Luke Jackson handles that. Because if we start seeing another ruckman coming in, we've got to start looking at maybe even trading Jackson out to maybe a Flanders or a Heaney if you don't have them. So they're options, or even go all the way down to one of these cheap mid prices, 5 Jordan Billings and an upgrade elsewhere. So that's it for the trades. I want to quickly mention the trades I'm making this week and next week. So I've got 5 trades that I want to make. And these trades are that I want to trade Powell to Sheasel, because Powell's got the buy in round 3. He's going to get a price spike this week of about 30k. And that should probably won't give me enough to get Sheasel, because Sheasel's 556. So I want that price spike, so I don't want to trade him in this week. So I'll be looking at trading him in next week when he's on his buy to Sheasel. So that's one trade I want to do. The other trade I want to do is I want to bring in Massimo. So Reed's out for 4 weeks, and my plan is to trade Reed and upgrade Reed to D'Ambrosio, so that I've got D'Ambrosio on the field, and then eventually I'm going to have D'Ambrosio and then Williams at D6, and then these rooks like Hoare and Howes on my bench. I'll be more comfortable doing that. The other trade I'm going to make is Berry, because I need the cash, and I'm going to downgrade him to Jack Carroll, or downgrade him to a Dempsey either this week or next week. I'm going to explain why I'm doing these trades and when I've got to do them. Clark's the other one I'm thinking of trading as well, and then Grundy. So this is how I'm looking at it. So with the Grundy trade, I'm definitely not trading him this week because he's got a break even of 57 and I want to get some cash out of him. The player I would trade him to is Sherry. So let's say Grundy gets his break even score. Let's say he goes up by about 25k. So that gets him, over 500k, or just over 500. Sherry's the one I would bring him into so I could get the cash. So Sherry's only 400, and he's not on the bubble. He's only played 1 game. He's on the bubble next week. So I could downgrade Grundy to Sherry next week, and I'll get 100k. So that's a next week trade. Will Powell also needs to be a next week trade because I want him to get that price spike this week. Get that extra 30k, trade him in then, because I'm trading him for Sheasel, which will be on the bubble next week. So Grundy and Powell have to be trades next week. So where do I get the cash from to do trades this week? So I want to have 3 available trades next week. Powell and Grundy are for next week, which leaves me 1 trade next week. So my plan is to downgrade Berry to Carroll. I think Carroll is going to be I don't really want to do that trade next week because this week I want to do Massimo. But I also want to bring in Dempsey. I can't downgrade Berry to Dempsey because it won't give me enough cash to go Reed to Massimo. So my only option is to downgrade Berry to Carroll, because Carroll's 123k and Dempsey's 148. So the plan's to just bring in Carroll now. So that's done. And that will give me, I think actually Carroll could even potentially average close to Berry or just under. And I think that the weight of having that extra 100k definitely is worth that if Carroll's only just a little bit lower in average than Berry. So that gives me 100k, gives me Carroll on the bench, and then it gives me enough money to upgrade Reed to D'Ambrosio. So then I'll have D'Ambrosio at D5, Williams at D6. I'll have Carroll, McKercher, and Roberts as my M6, 7, and 8. And then next week, it'll be Grundy to Sherry. That'll give me enough money to go from Powell to Sheasel. It'll also give me enough money, if I want to go Clark to Dempsey. So Clark would swap with Wilson, and then I'll get Dempsey here, and then Clark, and then Wilson in the midfield. That's what I'm hoping to do. I hope that made sense, but that's what I'm hoping to do, and we'll see how it works out, because you never know. Like, something might happen in round 2 coming up, and then I can't make those trades next week. But that's what I'm planning to do anyway. I hope this video really helped with some options of who to trade out and who to trade in. All the best with your team for this weekend, and I'll catch you for the round 2 review. Hopefully, if not Sunday night. It's a late game actually on Sunday, so probably Monday I'll put out that video. So thanks for watching or listening, and all the best. Have a great week in SuperCoach, and I'll catch you then.